A worthless person, a wicked man, walks with a perverse mouth. He winks with his eyes, he shuffles his feet, he points with his fingers. Perversity is in his heart. He devises evil continually. He sows discord. Therefore his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we meditate in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 12 to 15. Here we have the description of the worthless person or the wicked man. The Proverbs and other scriptures basically classify men into two classes, the righteous and the wicked. The righteous do evil things, and the wicked do some good things. But the distinction between them is that the characteristic of their life is either good or evil. And so the righteous person will characteristically do what is right. He will avoid evil. He will be embarrassed when he has done evil. He will not be scheming evil, but he will be scheming to do good. He will be working out ways that he can do good. Whereas the wicked person is one who is continually scheming to do evil, to promote himself, to gain advantage for himself at the expense of others. And really it is the attitude to others that is the key, whether you are here to serve others or whether you expect them to serve you. And so the verses here that we're thinking of this morning describe a wicked man, and he is assessed as a worthless person. He doesn't contribute to society, rather he detracts from society, no matter how big he thinks he is. And we have several characteristics that are identified. First of all, he walks with a perverse mouth. You can't trust what he says. So he's breaking the commandment, thou shalt not lie. When he speaks for his own advantage. It's not just a simple statement. It is a statement that is designed to have an effect. In other words, he says what he believes will make them act in a way that suits him. And the second thing is that he winks with his eyes. The wink is a way of making a secret covenant with somebody. You have a public statement for everyone's consumption, but with a wink you acknowledge somebody else and say, actually I've got a different agenda here. And he shuffles with his feet. It's not clear which way he's going. He seems to be going this way and then that way. The idea of shuffling with his feet is he's not making a decided action for good and for righteousness. When he has the opportunity to do good, he kind of doesn't quite make it. When it's on the edge of evil, he doesn't blatantly do evil, but he kind of moves that way and ends up in that direction. He shuffles with his feet. And of course he points with his fingers, because it's always somebody else's fault. Blame somebody else for the things that go wrong. It wasn't me, it was him. So the description here comes to perversity is in his heart. It's not just that he's done one thing wrong or that he's made a mistake, but his whole thinking is wrong. We come across people whose thinking is wrong. It's deep-seated self-centeredness rather than thinking with clarity and rationality according to the light. Well, the light comes from the Word of God, so we have in the Word of God a standard by which we can expect the righteous to live. Now, another characteristic is he devises evil continually. That is, when he's thinking about what he's going to do, he is thinking of schemes to exploit others, to take advantage of others. There's no effort in his heart to do something that will be of benefit to others, but rather it is for his own benefit to the cost of others. And to this end he sows discord. Well, we have quite a list of things here. A perverse mouth, he winks with his eyes, he shuffles with his feet, he points with his fingers, his heart is perverse, he devises evil continually, and he sows discord. He causes trouble between people. He causes trouble because some people believe him, and some people realize that he is not true and genuine. And so he causes discord. He upsets people. He distracts them from the reality of the situation of what he's doing by making misstatements that cause people to be looking at one another instead of recognizing the source of the problem, which is himself. There are 7 faults, then, that come with this person who Solomon describes as a wicked man, a worthless person, a person who does not contribute at all to society. Well, God is patient, and this man will continue for a while. But we are then told, therefore his calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy. You can get away with evil for quite some time, but ultimately it will catch up with you, and you will be caught out. Now, as I read this, I am reminded of one of David's sons, because to have a godly father doesn't mean that you are necessarily godly. I'm thinking of Absalom. The story of David's sons is a sad story because several of them rebelled against him. This rebellion was because they took advantage of their father. He was the judge of all the earth, but he had made a mistake in his life in the issue of Bathsheba and committed murder. When he realized that God knew about this, he repented and the Lord forgave him. But he had set a bad example for his sons, an example which they never forgot, and many of them took advantage of him. So his son Amnon became infatuated with his half-sister Tamar, and when he couldn't get access to her, a cousin suggested he feign sickness and get her to nurse him. And so when she came over to nurse him, he raped her, and then he hated her. Well, Tamar's full brother was Absalom. He began scheming. The father didn't seem to do anything. His whole life was aimed at scheming against his father. He invited his brothers to a dinner, and there he had Amnon slain. His father expelled him, and he went to stay with his grandparents. But he wanted to come back. He couldn't do anything there in exile. He pleaded with Joab to intercede on his behalf. Joab was reluctant to do that, and so Absalom set his fields on fire to get his attention. He eventually got permission to move back to Jerusalem, but he was not allowed to see the king's face. And so he worked out a scheme by which he had to be reconciled with his father, and his father would acknowledge him. So eventually he wormed his way back into life in Jerusalem. But then what did he do? He started undermining his father, claiming, if I was king, I would sort this problem out. Having men running before him and saying, "Make way, here comes Prince Absalom," and drawing a pension to himself and criticising his father. So he's pointing the finger at his father and saying, Dad's not doing a good job, and making friends with people, promising that he will do better. But his purpose is not for righteousness' sake. His purpose is to exalt himself. So his whole life was one spent of scheming. Eventually he proclaims himself king, and David has to flee. David does flee. He loves his son Absalom, but he must flee for his life. And so the issue is how to catch David. Well, David sent his friend Hushai back to be in the court when Absalom comes in to take over, and Absalom's surprised. "David's your friend, what are you doing here?" And Hushai says, "I am going to support the king." Well, of course, Absalom, in his self-centeredness, says, "I'm the king, he's going to support me." Ahithophel, another advisor who supports Absalom, says, "You need to let me take an army immediately and tonight kill David, and then you'll be on the throne." But Absalom asks Hushai, "Well, what do you think?" And Hushai advises him according to Absalom's vanity. "You know your father is very smart as a warrior. He even tonight will be not staying with the people, and if the soldiers go tonight there will be a slaughter, but David will survive, for he is very cunning. No, you need to lead the army yourself." This gives David time to escape properly. Well, in due course there is the battle, and Joab kills Absalom, because the only way to deal with this man is his death. Calamity shall come suddenly. Suddenly he shall be broken without remedy, and David is restored. Absalom didn't end up in this position just by making one error. He was continually scheming. He always had plans. He was blaming others. There was perversity in his heart. He was devising evil continually. He was sowing discord among the nation. And he was judged. A wicked man. Wicked man.